Man, Me, Myself, and Irene really was one funny movie, wasn't it? Anyways, do you want to do some Foo Fighters guitars today? I'll show you how. Let's do this. Hello! First of all, please subscribe to the channel. I'm gonna be doing a lot of breakdowns of songs, and today I'm gonna break down Breakout, which is awesome. Last time I did What's My Age Again. In its entirety, I completely remade that song from scratch in Ableton Live. But I can't do that all the time, you know? I still have a normal job and a normal life, unfortunately. So I'm also gonna do smaller videos, reverse engineering little parts of songs that I really love. But sometimes I'm still gonna make like full songs, so come with me in this journey, in this crazy journey where I do what I want, and hopefully you watch. That sounded way dirtier than I thought it would. And Breakout is one of my favorite Foo Fighters songs ever. It really is an awesome song. And one of the best parts of that song are the guitars. The guitars are really amazing. It starts with flangers and then it goes into distorted wide guitars. There's a bunch of little things in there that I want to show you guys how to do. So I chose a little section of that song that illustrates that very well, the intro and the first little section. And I'm gonna show how I remade those guitars from scratch in Ableton Live using only Ableton Live plugins. I made a poll actually, by the way, if you guys wanted me to do any other amps and amp simulators, and still Ableton Live's amp won. But in the future, I'm also gonna show you guys how to work some different amp simulators as well. Preferably free ones. No one got any money, right, to buy things anymore in 2022. So yeah, for some context, let me show you guys what I have for drums and bass there. It's quite interesting actually, but yeah, so the drums, right? The drums are again Steven Slade drums, and they are Core Kit Gotcha. This is not a free one, but I'm focusing the free stuff on the guitars because this video is about the guitars. So I'm using Gotcha from Steven Slade Drums 5. And this is how it sounds on its own. Sounds pretty good. For bass, now this is really weird. I've never done this before actually, but I thought it was a cool thing to try out. I'm using a bass simulator plugin, like a bass player simulator plugin. I'm not using like, I didn't play the bass. I played the bass on MIDI and I have a plugin playing the bass for me. If you solo it, it sounds quite unnatural, but in the context of the song, it doesn't sound that bad. Check it out in solo though. Sounds good, it has loads of low end and grits and distortion in there, but on its own you still kind of feel that it's not a real person playing, right? But if you take it out of solo, it actually sounds quite nice, doesn't it? It blends quite well with the song. A lot of you guys have been asking me actually if we can do a song without playing any real instruments, no guitars, no bass, no drums, just MIDI stuff. Do you guys want me to do that? Because I think I can ask you, Jam, to give me some of their plugins, because they are the ones who have a lot of these simulation plugins, right? So maybe I can try and do a punk rock song using no real instruments, just virtual instruments. Let me know if you guys are interested in that, and I'll try my best. But to the main event, the guitars. Let's listen to the whole section we're gonna work on today. That's it, that's all I got for today, but there's a lot of little things just in that little section that can show you guys how to do so many cool things. So let's start from the beginning, the flangy guitars. And actually the flangy guitars today are not flangy, they're phasey. I have no idea how they recorded that song at all, but I feel it was a strong flanger pedal going into the amp, right? But in Ableton, when I was playing around with the phaser flanger plugin here, I was not able to get as strong as a flanger as I wanted to using the flanger mode, so I had to jump into phaser mode and kind of push it lightly. And it was a real battle of playing around with these knobs to get kind of a similar sound. Flangers are hard, man. Each pedal sounds different, each gear sounds different. It's just, they're very particular flangers, right? So I did my best. This flanger in Ableton is not made for guitars, but I still was able to push it to something that's quite close. It gives you at least the vibe of the original song, right? But let's go from the beginning. Let me turn off all of these things. I recorded this guitar directly to my interface, no amp, no nothing, just very boring, plugged in to my interface directly. Then, first thing, the pedal plugin, which is kind of my tube screamer simulator, you know, it gives a bit of an overdrive, even though the gain's all the way down. If you put it on overdrive, it still gives you a bit of an overdrive. And I'm pushing a lot of mids and pushing some treble in there using this little pedal right here. So this is before. And after. A lot of mids in there, but I felt that I needed those mids to match the song. Next one, the phaser flanger. That's in phaser mode actually, and I really had to play around with these settings right here. The rate, I needed to push it to 6 to kind of have the same speed of flanging that the original song had. The amount to 43 because I don't want it to be 100% because that's too phasey. So it's too far from a strong flanger already, right? I needed to be closer to a flanger than a phaser, but you know, the flanger wasn't strong enough, so the phaser was what I needed. But anyways, amounts 43%, quite a high feedback here because in the song you can really hear that flanging feeding back to itself. So going in the background there, you really hear that. And I had to reverse the phase because when I reversed the phase, it actually made the phaser a little bit thinner, which was closer to the original track as well. And warmth, a little bit of warmth to give a bit of a overdrive to the flanger pedal. So this is how it sounds before. And after. And of course, you need an amp simulator to have a good guitar sound, because as of now, it sounds quite horrible, right? Line-in guitars don't sound very nice. So you need an amp sim and a cabinet sim. Here they are, amp. I chose Blues amp again. For clean guitars, the Blues amp in Ableton Live ends up always being my favorite. I don't know why, it just has a clean but crunchy sound that I like. It's quite spunky as well. I do really like this amp sim. The next thing I did was push a little bit of bass, not push the gain too much because I already had a little bit of gain from the pedal, but this is how it sounds before and after. Already much better, but you don't need only an amp head sim, you need a cabinet sim as well. And you guys know my trick with hybrid reverb to do a cabinet simulator using impulse responses, right? This impulse response right here, stereo Foo Tender Tube, is actually a free impulse response from an IR pack that I found, link in the description below, that is kind of trying to mimic a Foo Fighters sound. So that was perfect, right? So I just read the name like Foo Tender Tube and I used it. How cool is that? We're using a Foo Fighter inspired cabinet sim on a Foo Fighters song. And now the guitars are finally gonna start sounding like real guitars in the real world. This is before. And after. That really puts the guitar in a room and kind of mellows out all of the harsh frequencies and makes it sound like it's coming out of a speaker, right? A cabinet. Always remember, when you're doing this trick in hybrid reverb, I have a whole video about this. You can click it somewhere here in the description below as well. Always remember, when you're doing this trick though, pre-delay at 0 and always here in the modes, use convolution. Convolution. Don't mess around with the other modes here. If you're doing an impulse response thing, use convolution. And the rest here, stereo to 100, dry and wet to 100. There you go. You got it. Next step, a little bit of EQ, cutting the lows and just pushing a little bit of the air up here in the guitars. This is before. And after. You You see those guitars in the original song, they didn't have all of the low end in this section, so I cut out the low end a little bit and I pushed the highs just a little bit. Really, really basic EQ setting right here. And lastly, hot driven tape. This is a preset you found in Ableton Live. If you go into Drive and Color, Dynamic Tube, you will find hot driven tape, the preset, and then you can put it in there and kind of control the dry and wet just to get a little bit of a tape sound in your guitars and kind of give that sensation that you recorded to tape. It's pretty nice. So this is before. And after. Not a massive difference there, but it still gives you that vibe, that tape vibe that you need, right? Next thing, new guitars come in here, so let's keep playing the song. So this is a very basic, very, very basic crunchy guitar, right? Pedal, pushing a little bit more here is the same settings as the other one, just pushing some more gain. Instead of the blues amp, finally I changed my amp head to clean because I have the distortion coming from pedal. So I use the clean amp head, the same hybrid reverb setting as the other one. And the EQ is actually off on that one because I needed more low end and less high end on this guitar. So I just turned off the EQ8 here. This is the guitar in solo. And as you can hear, it's a little bit to the left. And when that guitar comes in, this guitar here comes out of the center. If I go into automation mode right here and click on my panning, the original Flanger guitars go out of the center and go a little bit to the right. So they open up a little bit, one to each side, and the voice can come in the middle right there. Cool little trick, just a little bit of automation, a touch of automation to make the song a little bit more exciting, right? Just a touch of automation, but that's a cool little trick. Automate your panning on your guitars, make them move around a little bit, and you get little surprises for your listeners in your songs. Next step is the dirty guitars, the heavy ones in the song. And the thing with these dirty guitars is that they're super wide. Now the song is gonna explode, so the guitars go super to the sides, they are really wide, and they really push the song up and give space to the bass and the vocals in the middle. So let's hear how that sounds. You see how those guitars going to the sides really bring the whole mood of the song up a lot. It's a cool little punch up. The song's very central in the beginning, very central, very narrow, and then it goes to the sides and it's really nice. It's a nice surprise there for the listener. And a cool trick in Ableton Live is if you need stereo guitars, you can actually record your guitars twice like this. So I recorded the same guitars twice. It's not copy and pasted. Always remember this. When you need wide guitars, you need to record the exact same thing twice. Pan one hard left, pen the other hard right, and in Ableton you can actually group them and put your guitar plugins in the group. You don't need to do it twice for your guitars. You can just group them and put them in the group. Again, very basic crunchy guitar sounds here. Foo Fighters in that era, they didn't really distort their guitars so much. They're more overdriven than distorted. But let's check out how I made this sound here. So I got pedal, gain, a little bit of gain, less mids pushed because those guitars are not as middly, they're more fatty and nicer. Now I chose the rock head because the rock head adds more gain and also makes the guitars a little bit heavier, a little bit more rockier as the name says. And it's a really good amp head for distorted guitars. And if you're doing the group trick where you have your guitars in a group, penned hard left and hard right, you actually have to turn the output of your amp sim to duo right here. That's very important. So it doesn't convert your guitars to mono. If it's like this, it's gonna convert your guitars to mono. No good. It has to be a duo. Hybrid reverb, the same exact mode as in all of the other guitars. And EQ8, pushing a little bit of the low and the low mids a little bit here and pushing down the fizzy top end. That's basically it. And now I'm gonna turn the plugins on one by one. One quick mention about how you play Foo Fighters. I've searched for a lot of guitar tabs and chord sheets for this song just to help me get started on playing this song. And I noticed that a lot of people, a lot of them say that these are just power chords, and they're not. If you listen to the songs, they're not power chords. They have full chords going in there, they have loose strings, they have a bunch of things. So don't always trust guitar tabs, right? Really listen to the song. I don't know if I'm playing exactly right, but this is what I hear when I listen to that song. So you see there's a lot of full chords and a lot of loose guitar strings, and it's quite messy messy actually. Foo Fighters do this a lot. They play really punky, punchy songs, but they, instead of using power chords, use full chords, which make the guitars a little less punchy, but makes the general harmonic value of your song go up a little bit. I quite like playing punky songs with full chords. I do that a lot in all of my bands, but Foo Fighters do that a lot as well. I guess I got it from them. Obviously I did, because I listened to so many of their songs. Anyways, the next one is my favorite guitar, because this guitar is very, very fuzzy. It's kind of a middle lead guitar that comes in a little section there just before Dave Grohl starts singing again. And it plays a really simple little riff, but it's destroyed. It's fuzzy, it's distorted, it has some reverb on it, it has loads of low end. It's really a crazy guitar. So let's listen to this next section. The cool thing about this section is that you have this destroyed guitar right here in the middle. Let me solo it for you. And now the clean guitars are way off to the sides, pan hard right and hard left. And again, I use the group trick here. So this is just the clean guitars. And together, it's really cool because you have the contrast of the really dirty, messy guitar in the middle with loads of low end and fuzz, and the really clean, nice guitars on the sides. It's really nice because you can really hear them both. It gives an amazing vibe to this section of the song. Again, with this guitar, it's a really simple thing. The only thing that I did is I used the same chain that I was using for my dirty guitars up here, the wide ones, right? I used the exact same thing, but I changed the pedal modes to fuzz, put the gain up a little bit, and I put this preset here of the Reverb plugin, Dark Hall. If you go to the reverb and resonance here and search for dark, you will find Dark Hall up here. You see, just drag that in there, dry wet to 41%, and that gives a little bit of space because that guitar is a little bit more emotional and has a little bit of emotion. So it needed a little bit of reverb to convey that emotion. Let's go from the very start and just turn on all of the plugins one by one. Did you hear that reverb tail right there? Pretty cool, right? And also, after my Dark Hall, I have chorus and cymbal here, because those guitars, I felt they had a little bit of a chorusy vibe. They were moving a little bit like this. I don't know, I might be wrong. So I put a little bit of a chorus on 21%, just even after the reverb, to give everything a bit of movement and width. Just make it a little bit wider than just center, right? Just a little bit wider. And the wide guitars, again, the group trick. So all of the plugins are not in my individual guitar tracks here. I recorded 2 guitar tracks, pan hard right, pan hard left. Remember, always record 2 different takes. I say that so many times because so many of you guys ask me if you can just copy and paste and pan them wide. No, you can't. You have to record the guitars twice. Here we go. Wide left, wide right, no plugins on them except for the tuner. Of course, you always have the tuner in your guitar tracks to keep your guitars in tune, but no actual plugins in there. And the plugins go in the group. And that's basically the same settings I had for my first clean guitars. And this time I had my amp on clean instead of blues because I wanted it to be a little bit different from those guitars in the beginning there, from the soloed Flanger guitar, right? So I have a little bit of a crunchy overdrive here on my pedal. You guys can check out, I forgot to say this in the beginning as well, I'm leaving my pedal usually not on fully wet. I mix the distortion down a little bit here on my dry wet because I find it nice to have a little bit of the clean guitars coming through there, just to give a little bit more definition to my strings because I'm playing full chords and not power chords. It's nice to have the individual strings be heard and not just be all distorted and messy together, right? It's nice to have that a little bit of definition, and because we have a dry wet knob in a pedal, which is very unusual, we can do that, and it sounds pretty nice. I usually do that. Then I have the clean amp head, the same cabinet as all of the other ones, didn't even EQ this one, and I have a chorus and cymbal plugin here just to give him a little bit of movement on the sides, make them a little bit wider, a little bit nicer, and again, the hot driven tape plugin. So let's turn each of these plugins one by one, starting from the boring line in sound all the way to the end. Let's do this. And that's it. Pretty cool, right? I think it's a really small section of the song, but it really illustrates how important panning is. How to think about where your guitars are going to be located in your stereo image is important. It's very important because you see how many different sections you can create, how many different vibes you can create by suddenly having your flanger guitar in the middle, and then a little dirty guitar comes to the side, and then suddenly the dirty guitars explode to the sides, and then suddenly the dirty guitars in the middle, and you have clean guitars in the sides. It's very important to really work your panning and really be creative with your panning, because it does make a lot of difference in your final mix. It makes your mix much more exciting than just having the same guitars all the time, playing from the same place all the time. Another thing that I forgot to mention, I have this little effect return here, small dark room. This is just a hybrid reverb preset here. So if you go to hybrid reverb and you go to room, small dark room, just drag that in there and send some of my guitars into this reverb just to give them a little bit of a room sound. Let me just solo that for you guys so you guys can really listen to this. It really places those guitars in a room as if it was a band playing together in the same room. I like to do that a lot with room reverbs. Just kind of place all of my instruments, actually, not just my guitars, all of my instruments for my song kind of in the same room as if we were playing together, jamming together in a small room, as most bands used to do in the 90s. That's it for this video. I really hope you guys liked it. I know it's not as big as the What's My Age Again one, but I still think there's a lot of cool information there for you guitar players that are starting to use Ableton. So if you liked it, please leave a like below. Please subscribe to my channel. Visit my website to know more about me, juliangrim.com. And please press all the buttons around me in this world that help me, please. And I see you all next time. Thank you for watching and bye.